Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 30. Today we are going to go for a couple goals, and I guess we will see in the video if we can accomplish them or not. One of them will be the complete eradication of the dark fog ground forces in our home system. I have come to the conclusion that having them there is not going to be good for our power generation, since the Hive will leech some of it off. Another thing we need to do will be the expansion of our construction apparatus. This will include building some more launchers for the rockets, as well as rail cannons to start putting some solar sails into orbit around Olympus, so we can start filling in the gaps between the structural elements. Apart from all that, we will just mostly strive to keep our factory going, but plugging holes whenever we find any. Before we get started, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will let me know that this video was worth making. If you want to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them, and for a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. But enough talking, let's get into it. Alright, let's start by adding a couple more levels to this universe matrix lab, so in case we start making them in decent numbers, we will have the capacity to do so. And to get to that point, we will need to increase our quantum chip output. Going back on the supply chain, the problematic part seemed to be the titanium glass factory, since it's lacking the metals it needs. Before we take care of that, let's double up the number of assemblers, so it is ready to receive the increased input when we take care of the smelting. We are now at the point where we should start thinking big. Instead of just adding a single titanium smelting tower, we will add 2, or maybe 3, and that will require some extra buildings, so I picked those up at the mall. Yeah, we have the necessary raw titanium, just not the throughput needed to keep the demand sated, so adding a couple more arrays should take care of that. Once we start upgrading the logistics with the infinite technologies, that will take care of the delivery issues for sure. I obviously didn't want to leave this place half finished, so I made a quick round trip back to Juneau, so we can pick up the last remaining smelters. The next thing on the agenda was the increased launching infrastructure. Right now, we have only 10 of them being active, and that is not exactly fast. If we had 20 more launchers, that should put us over our current production capabilities. I would like to make sure we are using every single rocket we make, so construction can be as fast as possible. Okay, these things take a long time to craft ourselves. While that's going on, we can at least set the sight for them. We will just continue the current row of launchers, but I took off the inserter at the very start. Right now we are doing the launches simultaneously. If we start feeding them while they are empty, they will instead do them in a neat series. You'll see what I mean when we get to it. Okay, we are still crafting them, so we can do something else, and come back when we're ready. I suppose we could pop back to Vulcan, and increase the local power production capacity. We keep adding more and more furnaces, but we only really take care of the power when it's already starting to struggle. Okay. The launchers are ready. Let's restart the process, and see the launchers do their thing. See? Instead of all of them launching at the same time, now they are doing it one after another. Simultaneous launches look good too, but I kind of prefer this staggered approach. Well, I think it's time we took care of the enemy forces on Minerva. We cannot attack the central hive yet, but starting to starve them of resources should be our first step anyways. It will be the usual approach. We just use signal towers to put the enemy buildings on the radar of our rocket launchers, and they will take care of the rest. It seems we are out of foundations to plug the holes. Only 3 bases remain, so we might as well just go back, restock, and finish the job once and for all. It pains me to destroy these bases, they've been leveling up nice and slow for a while now. But for the sake of our sphere power output, they have to go unfortunately. It wasn't a total waste though, we still managed to gather 15 million soil piles from it. That is a pretty good trade-off if you ask me. While that last base is being demolished, let's take a look at our research. In order to make our space fleets capable of destroying the Hive with minimal losses, we will need to do a bit of science to increase their damage output, so we got some of the laser upgrades going. And to ensure that Minerva remains protected, we better plop down the shield emitters. Good thing we took care of the blueprints in the last episode, so it's very easy to position them. There are a few collisions, but nothing that would break the coverage. We just need to manually place a couple of them as we go. Since there is nothing critical on Minerva at the moment, we can delay the shield for just a little bit. What I had in mind was the solar sails. Having the frame structures going up is all nice and well, but to get the most out of the sphere, we will need to fill in the gaps, and that is done by the sails. This pole is already reserved for the ray receivers. The solar sail launchers can go to the other. This planetary tower might be in the way, so we should move it. In fact, let's get rid of these windmills too. The railguns can require quite a bit of space to set up. That's lucky. We managed to place them in a way that is perfectly spaced. We didn't make enough to get all 3 layers completed, but it should be easy enough to take care of that in a bit. First, let's do the belt system to distribute the sails. There are a few instances where we have some collisions between the inserters. Those will require individual attention. Now we need to set up the orbits for the launchers. To get a continuous round-the-clock launch schedule, we will need 2 orbits, going in opposite polar trajectories. This is necessary because of the planet Zeus. It will periodically obscure the orbits if we left them in an equatorial path, but if we put them in the highest possible one with a 90-degree inclination, the launchers will be able to see them even if the gas giant is in the way. And we need 2 of them going in opposite directions, because the launchers can only launch the sails if the orbital trajectory is going away from them. If we put all launchers on the same orbit, they would only be able to operate half the time as the planet goes around the star. Since this is inevitable, we might as well split them between 2 separate targets, so they are still only working half the time, but we always get half of them working. Well, to ensure the last 2 launchers have the sails they need, we will need to set up a couple individual branches on the belts. After we are done with the solar sails, we will need to do the shields, so we might as well get that crafting going. Okay, as usual, setting up the power for the shields is a bit of a slog, so let's fast forward through it to cut down on the superfluous stuff. It is also a good excuse to link all the disparate little outposts together into a single power network, so we can expand it when it becomes necessary, and since we are adding a lot of demand onto it with all the new shield emitters, it will be necessary to do so right now. Yeah. I did just place a signal tower instead of an emitter. I will fix that problem once it becomes obvious that we have a gap in the coverage. Time to add that second orbit. It is exactly the same as the first one, except it goes in the other direction, which we achieve by rotating it at 180 degrees. Then we just set half of the rail guns to this second target, and we have a continuous flow of solar sails going up to be absorbed into the sphere. And before you write that inevitable comment, yes, I am aware that there is a mod that allows the launchers to reset their targets automatically to keep them operating 24/7, but this is an unmodded playthrough. All we need to do now is to finish the last layer of railguns. But first, let's fly out to our little swarm of solar sails. Watching them get diverted toward the sphere is always a big moment for me. Normally, they would just start orbiting the star along the path we set for them, but since we have structural nodes ready to absorb them, they get pulled off course immediately, and start their slow drifting toward their final resting place. Okay, we only need 6 more of them to finish the last layer. Let's quickly make them, and leave them to do their job. And that about covers it. We might add another layer once we have a lot more nodes to fill in, but at this point in time, these launchers will be adequate for our purposes. Well, adding all those extra launchers did end up depleting our reserve of construction rockets. Let's see what's holding up the production. It seems we are struggling with the graphene. We just set up a whole new factory planet for them, so I have a suspicion that we managed to clog it up with hydrogen already. I will not investigate that today, but we'll definitely have to do it in the next episode. As for the rockets, those are being held back by the quantum chips. It seems we are not making enough processors. That settles it. The next factory planet we build will be dedicated to those. Watching the solar sails being absorbed into the sphere nodes is always a joy to watch. I often find myself simply putting myself in orbit, and just watching them slowly drift in those neat little queues. And this is where I discovered my error. I placed a signal tower, not a shield emitter. At this point, every one of our planets is fully covered with enough shields to completely prevent any future landings by the dark fog relays. Since the central hive cannot get any more resources from the planets, it will slowly get starved out. Once their reserves get depleted, and we launch our assault, they won't be able to replenish their forces, making it easier to fully demolish their base of operations in the system. Anyways, time to get started on our processor factory planet. Here's the thing about those. They require microcrystalline components, and those are only used to make processors and the spray coaters for proliferation. I think it's pretty safe if we have them on the same planet together. Since we only have 2 empty planets left in the Lambda Leonis system, we will use this one for it. The other one I still want to use to make either deuterium, or for the Casimir crystals. As I've said in the last episode, it would be beneficial to have a hydrogen sink in this system, since our graphene production has it as a byproduct, and we need to get rid of it to keep things going. Also, we are close to finishing the laser upgrades, so I added the combat drone defense line into the queue, so our attack ships can last longer in combat. As for the processor factory, we will start with the microcrystalline components. To achieve the perfect ratio, we will need to build 2 towers, making those for every tower making the processors. It's just how the ratios ended up coming out. So, we will build 4 towers for the components, and 2 for the processors. There was no way I would spend time traveling between systems this close to the end of the episode, so I decided to just set up the construction site for the processors, and we will take care of the actual buildings in the next episode. I really wanted to have the processors on the opposite side of the planet, but the organic crystal mines were in the way. Well, I still might move that around a bit in the next video. It's only a couple windmills, but for now, let's just place down the blueprints. As I've said, we only need a single processor tower for every 2 component arrays, so we only place 2 towers for now. Okay, I think we can call it right here. We need to fly back to Juno to stock up on the construction materials, and then we need to deal with the power. After that, we will have another planet set up to make a single item for us. Most of our efforts will be pretty much this from now on. Once we find a gap in our supply lines, we will simply go to a planet, set up the factories to make that particular item in massive quantities, and carry on doing that until we are satisfied with our interstellar factory. As for our far future plans, the most obvious path will be the construction of even more spheres. The best place for them will be around O-type stars, those are the most luminous, as well as the largest in size. A potent combination for maximum power generation. Not only will those stars give out the most amount of power, their size will also allow us to cram as much structural elements onto the sphere as physically possible, giving us extra surface area to collect all those precious photons. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will also help letting me know that the video was worth making. If you would like to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them. And if you want to give a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next one.